I ask you, from the oversight that you have been able to do, those biologists, those people who, as you say, are being interviewed by young DOJ employees, you're saying that the one in charge there is a 25-year-old man. What are these interviews like? What kinds of questions are being asked? Do you have any idea what's going on?
Yes, I'm being told by the employees that they are just living in terror inside the EPA headquarters and all the regional offices. They're being asked to justify their existence. They're brilliant scientists. They gave up their life. They could have worked for DuPont. They could have worked for chemical companies. Instead, they decided to work on behalf of the health of Americans. Or they decided to work to deploy solar and wind across our country to ensure that we could fight climate change. And instead, they're being cross-examined almost in a way that is 1930-ish Soviet Union by 25-year-old inquisitors. And it's just the world tipped upside down, where those young people who we revered, who majored in biology and chemistry and physics, are now being questioned by people who have no credentials and no interest, by the way, in protecting the health and well-being of Americans across our country. And that's why we need the courts. Congress has to stand up and fight, but we're going to need people across this country to stand up and fight, to not agonize, but organize against these people. We're going to need people by the millions to stand up to Trump because they want to loot all the healthcare, education, and environmental programs for the tax breaks for the millionaires and billionaires. That's the whole plot. It's very simple. And these young men and young women, but mostly young men, are in there to accomplish that goal for the billionaire class.
Senator, I appreciate your time and thank you very much. And everyone's here with me now. And Ryan, when Senator talking about that they're going to need the courts, and right now that's it. It's been the courts. I mean, obviously the senator's a Democrat, and there are some who are. But there's been disarray in the Democratic Party. Certainly Congress. There's disarray, question, chaos about what they can or even want to do about it, depending where they sit. The White House today spinning the news of this setback on the resignations, mass resignations of federal employees, saying we're grateful to the judge for extending the deadline so that they, people can take up this very generous once-in-a-lifetime offer. Now, obviously, they put the deadline out, okay, because they wanted the deadline. So they're not happy about the deadline being extended. I mean, that's obviously spin. Is it?
It is. I mean, if they wanted to extend the deadline, they could extend the deadline. So part of the problem with the program is that it put enormous pressure on the workers to have to decide within just over a week the rest of their lives. And the program's riddled with these different problems in it. So at a minimum, the judge is just saying, let's put a pause. They've raised good enough legal arguments for that. And she's rejecting the government's argument. The government's argument is, can we proceed ahead without the court interfering in the program? So it's not what the government wanted, it's the opposite of what they wanted tonight.
So, Jamal, though, this is just in this sense, right? Okay, so this was a halt, this was a loss, but it's just for a few days. There's another hearing on Monday.
Yeah.
Right? So does this then, I mean, do you think the courts will really stop Trump at this or other issues, birthright citizenship, as I mentioned, among others?
There are responsible judges inside the judiciary who I think are taking on the Trump administration. Look, as you know, I sat here night after night arguing for a very different political outcome in the last election. The American people chose Donald Trump to be president. They did not choose Elon Musk. They also did not choose a level of chaos that it is that we're seeing. And so while we can always make the EPA more regulatorily efficient, make sure that people can get their laws passed in a way and get the budgets to work in a way that work better. What we now know, though, is that's not what's happening. They're not trying to fix the EPA. They're not trying to fix USAID. They're trying to destroy them in some way, the chaos that's happening. So we've got to figure out as a country, how do we do this in a way that doesn't go too far, doesn't move too fast, and isn't too mean?
Right. Well, I mean, they were clear with USAID. I mean, at least Elon Musk was. I mean, he wants to kill it. So Congressman Buck, as a former prosecutor, and you've been in Congress and you've sat there, with Trump, right, understanding what they're dealing with right now. Do you believe, Congressman, that Trump will do what the courts tell him to do?
Yes, I believe that President Trump will do what the courts tell him to do. I also believe we have a $36 trillion debt. I also believe that President Trump won the popular vote with the mandate on immigration, inflation, and to reduce federal spending. I don't hear Senator Markey talking about how do we reduce federal spending in a responsible way that is different than what President Trump is trying to do. So I think the president is forcing an issue and forcing people to the table so that we do get an answer of some kind in this very important area.
All right, so Jamal, I want to give you a chance to respond to that because he does get to the heart of an issue here, which is, okay, Trump did talk about wasteful federal spending. There has been a big increase in federal employees, and there's a lot of waste in government.
Of course.
Okay, so Democrats would probably not be smart to be on the side of just defending everything.
That's right.
Right? But how do Democrats walk that line then?
They've got to argue for some kind of change here. But here's the thing that is going to actually change this. The courts are going to do their part. The American people have to do their part too. We're starting to see, we saw outcry in 50 states over the last couple of days. You're starting to hear people speak up about this more often. This is going to be something where the American people are going to have to put their leverage on Republican legislators, because I'm not sure, even if the courts have a ruling, and you tell me, even if the courts have a ruling, what happens if Donald Trump decides he doesn't want to abide by a judicial ruling? What's the recourse?
Nothing. That is the doomsday scenario that a lot of lawyers are worried about.
Right. The DOJ is the enforcement mechanism for a court order. And if the president tells the DOJ not to comply with the court order, we're in real jam.
That's right. I think that is the doomsday scenario. It hasn't happened yet. There's been some misreporting that makes it as though that's what's happening, but not yet. So far, they are complying with all the court orders, but what happens come the day that they do lose at the Supreme Court? Because I think some of these cases are just losers. And if they really want to push it, we're in a real constitutional crisis.
And this Supreme Court gave Donald Trump immunity for any official actions, which means he can do whatever he wants. He can pardon whoever he wants. This is going to take Republican legislators holding this man accountable to actually follow the law and do what it is the country has been set up to do.
And Congressman Buck, I'm curious as to whether you think that will happen. And part of the context here, and we'll see how this goes through the courts, right? But in the current moment, Congressman, right, you've got, today you've got that stay on the mass resignations that they want. You've got a federal judge blocking the birthright citizenship again. You've got a block on the freeze in federal spending. So that's where it is right now. Do you think, Congressman, that this is causing Trump to lose any political capital with Republicans in Congress?
President Trump isn't losing political capital with Republicans in Congress, Republicans in the United States, or frankly, unaffiliated voters in the United States. He's doing exactly what the people told him they wanted him to do. He is, and maybe people on the other side look at it as creating chaos, but he is turning the federal government upside down, and he is trying to find areas that we can reduce spending. And if we don't reduce spending, we're going off a cliff. And this is an existential threat. The president is trying to address that. The question of, will he obey a federal order? There's no reason to doubt that he did in his first administration. I believe he will now. But he is addressing a very serious problem.
You really think, Congressman, there's no reason to doubt it?
I do think there's no reason to doubt it. Absolutely. I think that if that happens, I hope you invite me back on, and I'd be happy to say I'm very disappointed that he didn't obey it. But right now, the question is, this federal judge has paused the action. He has not told the administration that it can't follow through. There were federal courts that told President Biden that he couldn't excuse student loan debt, and he turned around and tried to do it a different way 3 or 4 times. So maybe that President Trump will try to do that, but I doubt very seriously he will disobey a federal order.
I hope if the president disobeys a federal order, Congressman, you'll be more than disappointed.
Yeah, I don't want to laugh. I'm not making as if it's a laughing matter. Ryan, I'm going to give you one quick chance to talk about something else, though. The top prosecutor that Trump has in Washington is facing a bar complaint now because he asked a judge to dismiss criminal charges against his own client. His own client was involved with January 6th. How is this going to play out?
I think it's an incredible situation. So he comes into the office as interim U.S. attorney. He dismisses the charge against an individual who happens to just be his own client. Because he was defending January 6 defendants. You would think just the fact that he defended January 6 defendants, he would be recused. But he's actually representing him at the same time. So the ethics is a pretty strong charge. I think this might not be the only one that drops, but the first one that drops, it's an open and shut case in a certain sense of an ethical violation. He might just say, I made a mistake. I was so busy, I didn't file the paperwork.
All right, well, all right. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.